All right, how y'all doing? I decided to do a ranking of the four horsewomen of WWE since this was one of the things that were discussed the other day. A lot of people wanted to talk about where these women fit as far as in relation to one another. Usually, for starters, I don't really think that these are the four horsewomen. I mean, these are the four who kind of kicked off the revolution as far as taking it to the next level. But I actually would say that there were a lot of course, female wrestlers before them. But of course, they were the sort of generation that established. You know, you could always go back to AJ Lee and Michelle McCool and Paige, and of course, way back to Lundra Blaze and Trish Stratus and Lita and all those, and Jackie and all them. But these four horsewomen are they're the sort of the kind of what the NWO did to stables. The four horsewomen did to women's wrestling as far as they put up, sort of taking it to the next level. Like there were stables before the NWO, but every stable after the NWO is going to be compared to the NWO. So I guess all women who are wrestling now are pretty much being compared to these four women in the WWE. So I decided I'm just going to list them in my order, my particular order. We're going to start with number four, which should be obvious if you are a fan of my channel. Number four is Bayley. I've never been a fan of Bayley, but I'm going to give you the reasons why I think Bayley is number four. Um, Bayley is the baby sister of the four horsewomen. She was the last one to win the NXT championship, usually because the other three were gone. Uh, Everything Bayley has done, she was one dimensional as the hugger character, even though I thought, it was childish and it was really weird. But she was very one dimensional. Now that she's a heel, she's getting a little bit more comfortable, but she still sounds stilted. She doesn't feel authentic. It just doesn't feel like we have seen the real Bayley yet, and the character doesn't really make her stand out. She's a good in-ring worker. She really is that, but everything she does is is a struggle because she can't get to the level that people think that she should be. And one of those reasons is that everything that Bayley has done has been considered objectively great was only because she was involved with Sasha Banks. Like, who the hell knows what the hell Bayley was doing in NXT before she started that feud with Sasha Banks and had that series of great matches where she won the title and all that stuff from Sasha Banks. Including the Iron Woman match and the all the other stuff they were doing in NXT. That was the stuff that established Bayley as being one of the four horsewomen. Before that sort of storyline, nobody cared about Bayley. So you could have easily just said it was Paige, Charlotte, and Sasha Banks and Natalia. Because for a while, Becky Lynch didn't really matter either. So it was. So that's why I put Bayley last. I think that she's the one who hasn't found herself yet. She is, even though she's been champion forever. You can keep the title on her as long as you want. It doesn't matter. People just are not that interested in Bayley by herself, and I think that's number one. That's the number one reason why I see Bayley as being at the bottom. She just is not that interesting by herself. Number three I have is Charlotte, who has bounced from Charlotte to Charlotte Flair or whatever. I think she's still the best all around female wrestler in the business. It's weird because I have her at number three, but I think that if you look at complete packages, this is the female Randy Orton. As far as she's got a good look, she's got a good character, she can work her ass off, she can cut promos. But for the last 2 or 3 years, Charlotte has been incredibly overpushed and incredibly stale. And the staleness is what keeps her at number three. Charlotte has not done anything new as far as in character wise, as far as her promos, her presentation. She hasn't done anything different in years. Probably since, 2015, 2014, maybe. You know, she has just been sort of baby Flair. And that's just kind of, it was a ready-made gimmick. It was sort of a packaged gimmick that she just basically took up the mantle of Ric Flair, and then that's kind of it. And she does well. She does it well, but you still kind of want Charlotte to do something more, to evolve the character a little bit, to be a little bit, maybe be a little bit more Wicked Witch than unnecessarily arrogant heel. And I thought that the feud with Rhea Ripley would kind of bring that out because Rhea Ripley is a younger, less experienced, but more rougher opponent, and you would think that Charlotte would get rough with the rougher opponent, but she was still kind of like a flamingo, and that's kind of how I kind of view Charlotte, is that she's sort of the flamingo. She has, this aura about her where she's appears to be, this giant bird, but she can't really fly. She can, like, you can Charlotte can do what everybody else does, and everybody can't do what she does. But there are things that people do that are better than what Charlotte does individually. Like, again, Charlotte is best all around. And, like, if you need somebody who is charismatic, who can work, who can talk, Charlotte is the one. But there are people who are more charismatic than Charlotte. There are people who are better wrestlers than Charlotte. Charlotte is not as good a worker as Asuka or Sasha Banks. In my opinion, I think Sasha Banks is a better in-ring worker than Charlotte. Even though Sasha is a little bit more botchy because she takes more risks as far as she jumps off stuff and all that stuff. So, but I think Charlotte is still the best overall female wrestler in the business. And I think that when you look at somebody like a Taya Valkyrie or Tessa Blanchard, they don't compare them to Becky Lynch. They compare them to Charlotte. And they compare them to Charlotte for a reason, because Charlotte is the female Randy Orton. But I also think that the reason she's number 3 is because she has not evolved. She has not taken the chance to do something else other than just be the daughter of Ric Flair. Number 2 is Becky Lynch. The only reason 2 years ago, Becky Lynch probably would have been number 3, and she probably would have been there. She probably would have been under Bayley, if we're being honest, because Becky Lynch just had nothing going for her. She had been doing the steampunk thing, and it was just not working, and she was not interesting at all. And then out of nowhere, she sort of morphed. She sort of masculinized the character. She became more in your face, and people kind of liked the phallic woman idea of the man Becky Lynch. And I'm not really thrilled about that idea. But if it works, it works, and I'm not really going to complain about it. And I think that the sort of straight, tough persona that she has now, I think it works for her. And I think that she really does a good job on the microphone, even though I don't think that she's cutting the best promos in the world. I do think that she has proven to be one of the more dynamic of the female performers, as far as she went from being a happy-go-lucky babyface to sort of badass heel. Now she's sort of a badass face, a shit-talking face. And even though I think that she's sort of overpushed, I guess you could say, because she was champion for a year. But this has been the problem with Becky, is Becky needs somebody else. Much like Bayley, Becky needs somebody else in order to make her interesting. In other words, you can talk about how great Becky Lynch is, but what is Becky Lynch without, what was Becky Lynch doing, before Sasha Banks returned in the women's division on Raw? She wasn't doing anything, right? You look at the comparison between how Sasha Banks injected more interest into the Becky Lynch character that had ever been there since her feud with Ronda Rousey. And Becky had been champion for months at that point. So you can say, like, well, Becky is sort of the one, but she is a good all-around performer. I think that Charlotte probably has a better character, and but again, Charlotte is stale. But you also have that Becky Lynch is sort of, quote unquote, the top star of the business. Supposedly she's supposed to be the top babyface in the women's division, but she hasn't had any major challenges. So before Sasha Banks showed up, there was just, she wrestled Charlotte a lot, and then she had these really bomb, yawning feuds with Lacey Evans and Natalya, and it just was not working. It just did not work. She cannot elevate somebody else, and that's really, and Charlotte can. So really, the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, I'm really more interested in putting Charlotte number 2, because Charlotte at least can elevate other people, while I think Becky needs to have people elevated to her. I don't really see Becky as being the one to elevate other people. But she had this tremendous feud with Asuka. That keeps her at number 2 as far as, but of course then they beat Asuka, so they didn't make. But she had this tremendous feud with Asuka. She had these tremendous matches with Asuka, which is somebody other than the other 4 horsewomen. So, which is usually the only other one who can really get great matches out of these girls is Asuka. Anytime they step out of facing each other, it becomes a bit of a, I'm not so sure if they can make it. And hopefully Charlotte and Rhea Ripley will tear things up, and I can be like, okay, they can work with people other than themselves. But so number one is Sasha Banks. Obviously, Sasha Banks is the most charismatic. She has a more crowd pleasing style. I think that Sasha Banks is a character that she has the it factor. Even though, and she has to sort of understate herself right now so that she doesn't outshine Bayley. And it's really easy for her to outshine Bayley, So it's like it's so easy for her to outshine Bayley that she kind of has to stand there and do nothing and play the sidekick and not cut promos, sort of laugh at Bayley's jokes, so that she just doesn't take up too much space from Bayley. And to be quite honest, she added so much to Bayley's new character that really it just doesn't make it's just not really a surprise to me that people are far more interested in Bayley versus Sasha Banks than Bayley versus anybody else, because that's just kind of how things are. Bayley is not interesting on her own. Sasha Banks gave Charlotte the best matches she's ever had. She kick-started. She really made Becky Lynch feel important. She got over her feud with Lacey Evans. Like, if you really look at, familiar opponents or similar opponents, Charlotte Charlotte couldn't really get over Lacey Evans. They had a terrible match. Charlotte and Lacey Evans was god fucking awful. Lacey Evans and Becky Lynch was okay, but it didn't really help Lacey Evans at all. But Sasha Banks versus Lacey Evans got Lacey over, right? So Lacey over was over as a babyface. Now, you can say maybe it was the writing of them bringing in Lacey's daughter and her military and all that type of stuff, which is partly true, but it was the Sasha Banks being, sort of the antagonist that sort of got Lacey over as a character. And Sasha can elevate other people. Again, she elevates the people that she works with. She doesn't always need to be the champion, even though all her runs have been short and sweet, but they all, but she was able to elevate other people. She elevated Bayley. Again, the NXT stuff, she really made Bayley something special. She really brought the fire back into the really garbage run of Becky Lynch as the Raw Women's Champion. She gave Charlotte the best matches she's had. They main evented with the female Hell in a Cell match. I think they also, Becky and Sasha also had a women's Hell in a Cell match. And, the establishment of the women's tag team division, which was partly Bayley and Sasha Banks' idea. But, that sort of thing is why Sasha Banks is number one. Because she kind of has to step aside. And Charlotte as well. Charlotte also has to step aside in order to not outshine the others. I think that if you just let Sasha do what she do, she would be the top star and Bayley would be like, specks of dust in the back. She would be, Bayley would be Sasha's sidekick instead of it being the other way around. So this is my list of the 4 horsewomen and what I think they bring to the table. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say Becky Lynch should be number one. She's a top star and she gets the biggest pops and all that type of stuff. But I think a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. I think a lot of it, when you look at what Becky has done, she hasn't done anything that great in quite a while, and the things that she did do that were great were because she got finally elevated with a challenge. Asuka being one, Sasha Banks being another one, and kind of Shayna Baszler being another, even though Shayna Baszler, we'll see at WrestleMania. So this is recorded before WrestleMania. So we'll see before WrestleMania if Charlotte and Becky can really take others to the next level. Because we know that Sasha can. So we know that Sasha can take either one of the other 3 women and take them to the next level. But we're not entirely sure that Becky can take, somebody who was not really all that over and make them. And because she tried that with Lacey Evans and she failed completely. And she also tried with Natalya, but Natalya is a black hole of charisma and it just wasn't going to work. And Charlotte can do it. Charlotte can take somebody who is not as over as she is and make them look like a threat and make them feel like they're important. She didn't really need to do that with Rhea Ripley because Rhea Ripley has such an organic following. But she's done it before with other performers. And plus, Charlotte was like the only one that was in operation during the whole Paige era. So, you know, you have to kind of give her a little bit more credit than that. So, what do you guys think? Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.